Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the channel for an interview right now. We're talking to Molly Evensen from the new HBO Max movie, An American Pickle. Hello, hello, and congratulations.
Hello, thank you. And thank you so much for having me.
I was so pleasantly surprised by this movie. I probably, it feels wrong to even admit this, but I feel like the habit of boxing someone like Seth Rogen into making an assumption about a movie he's doing, especially a movie where he's playing two roles, kind of, I don't know, it like colored my initial impression based on the trailer, but the sincerity and heart in the movie was very powerful.
I'm glad to hear that. I think a lot of people didn't even necessarily believe that this was a real thing for a long time either, when it was just called the Untitled Pickle Project. So now that it has a name and it's a thing, I'm happy that people seem to be enjoying it so far.
And it's very real and it's coming to everyone. I think exactly when we need content at home more than ever.
Yes, that's my hope as well. Bring some joy in this weird time we're living in.
Yeah, it's something else. So everyone knows I love going back to the beginning and hearing about early inspirations. So can you tell us a little bit about when that moment came and hit you when you knew you had to get into acting?
Yes. So I have been performing for kind of my entire existence. But I think the moment that it really hit that this was like something that I could actually do, I was in New York with my mom when I turned 16. And we were at the stage door for, I think, Phantom of the Opera. Can't remember specifically. And we struck up conversation with a random guy next to us. And I told him, like, I'm going to be an actor. And he was like, well, you can. Somebody has to do it. Why can't it be you? And so in that moment, I kind of viewed it from that mindset. And if you look at it that way, I think that's encouraging for anybody. Like, it has to be somebody. So why can't it be you?
I really like that take on it. Also, I mean, what better place to just strike up a conversation with a stranger in New York City?
Exactly.
I actually do feel like the stage door, like, I don't know, like culture or environment kind of invites you to, I don't know, like talk to the person next to you also. There's something about that.
Yes, absolutely.
So what did you kind of do from there when you knew you wanted to get into the field? Was it a matter of, I don't know, pursuing programs where you could get formal training at school, or maybe more of a focus on, you know, industry, real world experience?
Yeah. At that point, I was living in Colorado, and it's much more of like a theater oriented state. They don't really have much of a film industry, which is a crime because they have so much to offer. But then I just really committed to theater. I started doing a lot of community theater in Denver, a lot of like my high school theater. And then I actually ended up going to college for it as well. So just kind of fully went into it and then moved out here to Los Angeles.
Did growing up in an area where there wasn't much of a film industry kind of affect how, I don't know, like your parents or your friends thought about you wanting to get into that? Did they think it was kind of like a crazy pipe dream?
I mean, if they thought that, they certainly didn't let me know that they thought that. I'm very fortunate in that my family has always been so supportive. My dad's thing was always, you got to be able to pay your bills, and I'm doing it. So, but they've always supported me. So I never felt, people have asked if I felt weird doing it growing up, but no, I was so bad at sports that finding something like theater that I was good at, I was like, I'm going to do this.
That kind of does lead me to talking about like your lengthy commercial resume, because you've done quite a few, and I did watch that one you did with John Cena. So and you were talking about sports in that a little. Is like the material in that commercial like really personal to you, or is something like that scripted?
That was a wild audition where it was for Crocs, so you didn't necessarily think it was going to be like anything serious, but they handed me a list of questions, and the question they asked me was, has failure played a role in your life? If so, and how did you overcome it? Like, this is really deep for foam shoes. So I told a story about how the only time I scored in soccer was on my own team, and then I booked it, and then I told that story to John Cena.
That is the coolest thing ever.
It's pretty silly.
That makes me think of my college essay to get into school. It was all about how I ran for student government every single year and never won the position, but I was always still motivated, and
you were doing it. You were trying. I
So
love that.
what has your experience been like racking up all those commercials? Because I don't know, I just wonder if that scratches the creative itch for you, or is it, more about booking opportunities and making a living doing this?
Yeah. I don't think it's ever really with commercials been about the making a living part, because with commercials, every contract is different. So you don't know, like, am I actually going to make money off of this one or am I not? So it was more the chance to get to create. That was definitely my main, and still is. I still do commercials, but I also have been very fortunate in that my commercials have all been kind of like very unique and creative. Like I worked with Taika Waititi on a Dr. Pepper commercial, which was so cool. Or like in another one for Let Go of the Village People, bought my disco ball. And so I've just had some really special opportunities commercially. So it's definitely been more about the creative and like the comedy side of it for me than just using that as a means for my income.
I must ask what it's like working with Taika. I've spoken to him a number of times, particularly on Jojo Rabbit, and I know he's got a habit of falling asleep and taking naps on set. Does that happen on such a short commercial shoot?
I don't. I mean, he definitely like made himself comfortable behind the monitor. He was laying down. So
That's
I'm not sure if he fell asleep. I don't think he fell asleep, but he definitely like made himself at home in this hibachi restaurant that we were shooting in.
I feel like, yeah, that all sounds very in line with what I know of him.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. He's great. He was very fun to work with.
Can you get the opportunity to kind of, like be creative in a shoot like that and play around and try new things?
Yeah, so he actually just kind of let me go. I like get frozen to a robot, which makes total sense. Uh, and so he just let me play with this weird little robot, which actually worked. There was somebody operating it, and it would like grab my hand and various things. But he was like, just like flirt with it. This robot's your best friend. Have so much fun with it. And he would occasionally tell me like, yeah, keep doing that because that was very funny, or don't do that. But pretty much he just kind of let me go and just have fun with it.
You seem so chill about all of this. You work with Taika Waititi, John Cena, now Seth Rogen. Is there any nerves when it comes to working with like a very familiar name and face like that?
I have not been nervous with that, which is odd, but I think it just feels so right and like it's what I'm supposed to be doing. And you hear no like so many times. So when you do hear the yes, it's just so exciting. So I really am so excited to be there that I haven't really experienced being nervous over it.
I feel like that's like a good power that I wish I can harness.
I was one time told though that your body doesn't know the difference between being excited and being nervous. So if you are feeling nervous, just tell yourself you're excited.
Oh wow. That's really interesting. Where did you learn that? I'd love to read up about
I
that.
think in college,
Huh.
if I remember correctly.
Yeah. I had a good experience in college, but I think a lot of the facts went in one ear and out the other.
Oh, me too. Especially when you study theater.
So you have all these commercial opportunities come your way. How about in the feature film realm? Because if, IMDb is correct and sometimes things are a little off, I believe you have 2 features on your resume right now. And this would be the third.
Yes. So those are both 2 like smaller independent projects. I booked the first one, Speak Now, with a lovely, lovely team. And then the second one, The Sound of Settling, it's the same team. And they wrote me in a line because they were trying to include like as many friends as possible. So I'm in it for like just like a split little tiny moment. But it was so fun to get to like work with them and spend time with them again. So An American Pickle is definitely my first like big studio feature. But yes, I do have 2 independent credits prior.
So what was the audition process like, and how did it differ from anything you had ever done before?
Well, I had just had surgery for my sinuses like a couple days prior. So my agent texted me and was like, "Hey Molly, how are you feeling?" And before I could even answer, like, "I'm doing okay," she sends me back, I have an audition for you, but you have the weekend, so it's okay. I think you should go to this. Like, sweet. So I had these big splints in my nose, which you couldn't see. I knew they were there, but casting didn't know, except that I told them because I was supposed to like run in place and things, which didn't end up being in the film anyways. I couldn't do that because I was told not to do any of that stuff for like a while. But so then they just let me play with it and kind of improvise and goof around a little bit. And the worst thing was that my nose was dripping, so it really wasn't bad. But it was like this first time I had left my apartment and since, and seeing other people was nice, which I think now we all understand more with quarantine. So I like thanked them for having me and for like giving me something to do. I was like, it's so nice to see your faces. I don't even know these people, but oh well. But so I just had the one audition. There were no callbacks. I found out a couple of weeks later that they were like actually seriously considering me for this role, and I was with my whole family on a trip. So that was really cool that we all got to be together when I got that call. And then a couple weeks later, I found out that I actually booked the part, and then they flew me out to Pittsburgh the next day, and we went from there.
I know sometimes when you audition for things like this, your sides are only your materials. So did you know who was involved? Did you know about Seth and Brandon and everybody and what the story was going to be?
I knew that Seth was involved because he was listed as a producer, and then the other names I was familiar with. I didn't have the full script because I couldn't do anything. I was just sitting on my couch. I wrote like this full elevator pitch for Clara, like for wanting to be this intern because I couldn't do the physical stuff. So I just kind of researched in like a very different way than I ever had before. Didn't end up getting to do that in the audition room, which is fine. But yeah, so that's kind of, it was just such a different approach than I had ever taken before.
I don't know how theater programs work with that kind of stuff, but is there any stage in that process where like you actually had to do an internship while you're in school?
No.
I will say, as someone who was an intern in the film industry in New York City, like you kind of captured that overeager vibe all too well. I felt it. At what point did you learn that the movie was going to HBO Max? Because that's like a new and exciting thing here.
I learned probably in mid-April. I learned when it was announced. So I didn't know prior to them announcing it. I had heard whisperings that it might have happened because I'm still friends with some of the cast and we keep in touch. And we had kind of talked about that, like maybe it was a possibility. Mm-hmm. But I was home in Colorado with my family, and I was just praying that it wouldn't just get scrapped altogether because so many things had been being pushed. And there are some kind of timely things in it that maybe won't be as funny in like a year. So I was a little concerned that it might not ever see the light of day. So when I heard that it was going to HBO Max, I was incredibly relieved. A little bit disappointed that it wouldn't be in theaters, but at the same time, I think it's almost an honor to be able to bring entertainment in this time that we're living in. And I'm really excited that it did turn out the way that it did. So, yes.
I like hearing that attitude about it because I think it is very accurate for right now. I watched the movie I'm basically quarantining right now in New York with my family. A lot of people out there know this, and we watched the movie together. And I feel like I have a very clear sense of my mom's comedy taste, mm-hmm. and I feared this would not be for her. And I think this might be one of her favorite things that we watched together since I've been home.
Oh. I'm so happy to hear that.
And it really is important to keep the content a-coming right now. And HBO Max is a very exciting new thing too. I know we've got a lot of streaming services out there, but HBO definitely filled that library with some good stuff.
They're doing work. They're doing great. Snyder Cut and all that. Like, well done, HBO.
Are you super into the DC movies and everything? Is there anything on there you're excited about?
More so Marvel than I am DC, but I do enjoy it. I have two brothers, so I kind of had to hop on board with the superhero train at a young age.
There's some quality content in that genre. It's not a bad thing to be exposed to right now.
I keep hoping that they'll finally bring Squirrel Girl to light in the Marvel world, but she just keeps getting the axe. So let's
I
do
don't
it, people.
I don't think you're alone in that. There's
No.
a lot of people rooting for her to finally get some screen time, whether it's in TV or film format. And like now that you bring her up, I mean, it does feel like a role that might suit your sensibilities quite well.
I wouldn't hate it.
I wouldn't hate that idea either. I'm glad you brought that up.
Thanks.
Going back to working with Seth, again, a big famous comedic actor.
Yes.
Do you walk onto that set with any assumptions about how you expect he is going to work, and how did he surprise you?
I just walked into it with an open mind. I'm very much kind of a silent observer at first. I really learned from watching. And so I was sitting there watching them do the whole setup, hadn't met him yet. And all of a sudden I hear his laugh and I was like, oh, he's here. And then he came walking right up to me, shook my hand, was like, hi, Molly, I'm Seth, and I'm so excited to work with you. It was actually the first day of the whole shoot. So he was just so kind from the start. And I really got to kind of watch how he worked and like handled himself on set, which is invaluable. I'm so grateful. Yeah, it was really cool to see how because he also views things from like a business mindset too. So just getting to see him in his element is very special and something that I'm so grateful for.
His producing resume is absolutely crazy with like phenomenal content right now. I find it so impressive.
I sometimes wonder if people like fully realize what like a genius businessman he is on top of being a creative. Because he is.
It goes back to like the sad truth that I was saying before. It's like there's something about your brain that when you've seen someone do the same thing so well for so long, you can't help but to just confine them to that.
Yeah.
And every time I cover one of his movies and I revisit his IMDb page, I'm like, look at all this stuff he's accomplished over the years.
Yeah, he's a genius.
Really is something else. I do want to know your take on the final film because I believe you only got to work with Seth as Herschel, and it sounded like the schedule of the shoot was super unique, so he could accommodate the beard and do one character and then the other. So was there anything about seeing like the full story together in the end that took you by surprise?
I mean, reading through it, the script seemed like a little, I don't want to say goofier, but a little more like silly. And so when I actually got to see it, I was so pleasantly surprised with how like actually grounded and like very heartfelt it was. That really took me by surprise. So, and in like a very pleasant way. So, but I did only work with Seth as Herschel. So I didn't really see any of how the other stuff worked. I mean, there were a few things that got cut out with my character with his other one, but yeah, so I wasn't really there for that part of it. But yes, I was so surprised with how like grounded and a lot more serious I think it was than I think anybody would really expect.
There is some very important themes and ideas in there that I like. It hit me because I wasn't entirely ready for it.
Yeah.
I kind of want some deleted scenes now. What did your character get to do with Ben?
Well, I don't know if I'm supposed to talk.
All right.
But they're silly, so if they release those, that would be cool.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing that. I hope all these streaming services embrace like their own form of special features menu, like we get on, physical Blu-rays and DVDs at some point.
I think it'd be super cool if they were to do that.
I am very eager to get that. So again, your first big studio film here, even though you've done other features, you've made shorts, you've made commercials, what is it about the studio filmmaking process that is so different from everything you've done before?
The scale of it is huge. I think that's honestly the biggest part. I think there's substantially more pressure involved with it because, you are also answering to a studio. Whereas with like an independent film, you're probably not backed by anybody yet in a lot of instances. But I just think there are a lot more people you have to make happy in a studio setting.
I would like to think you guys made everyone pretty happy with this one. Again, I really enjoyed it. Before I let you go here, just like a couple of, I guess, rapid fire questions so people get to know you a little more.
Sure.
First one, do you collect anything?
No.
No. Are you like a minimalist? I mean, clearly, like I've got everything here.
Oh, that's not true. When I travel, I take a rock. That's kind of boring, but I have like rocks from different places.
It's not boring.
They're in a cup. I have a cup of rocks.
No, I kind of like that. It's connected to a memory.
Yeah, and I like nature, so rocks are cool.
Do you have any pets?
Yes, I have a cat named Beatrice. She's the love of my life.
Oh, what is she named after?
I just liked the name Beatrice, so I mean it's a Shakespearean name, so we can say that.
Okay, I'm feeling that. What is the last TV show you've binge watched?
What We Do in the Shadows.
Such a good choice.
That and Yellowstone. Yellowstone is very good too.
I've only heard the best things about Yellowstone. I still haven't quite gotten to it.
It's not funny. It's not a comedy. It's very good.
I got to get to that one. A serious question I like to ask. Okay. What is the biggest fear that you've managed to overcome?
Not living in close proximity to my family, I would say. Because we're very close, and moving away was one of the hardest things I've ever done.
I can 100% relate to that. I never thought I would leave the New York area. And then all of a sudden, you rip the Band-Aid off to follow your dreams and go to LA.
Yeah, and some days you're like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? But then most of the time it's great.
Well, you're on a very promising path right now. And again, a huge congratulations on An American Pickle. And I can't wait to see more from you.
Thank you very much.
I am mighty pumped. Do you have a social media or a website or anything that you want the viewers to check out?
Sure. I'm on Instagram, and it's just my first name and my last name. So at Molly Evensen. It's the same on Twitter too. I don't use that as much, but I'm on both.
Check it out, guys. Again, Molly, thank you so much. American Pickle on HBO Max right now, actually. Go check it out. See you guys soon with more interviews and reviews.